talking about that you matter. You are important. You matter. You matter more than you think you actually matter. By a show of hands, if anybody in this room, any of y'all ever been asked, what do you want to do with your life? Has anybody ever asked you that question?
Oh, yeah.
What do you want to do with your life? After high school, what college you want to go to? What's your game plan for life? What job you want to work? You can put your hands down. I've been asked that question, and I got some sad news. Those questions never stop. It just gets reframed. Like in middle school, it's like, what's your dream job? In high school, it gets a little more real. It's like, what college you want to go to? Then you graduate high school, it's like, heck, I didn't go to college. Where do I want to work? Those questions never stop. And it's sad and it hurts because you start comparing yourself. You're like, man, well, this person's doing this with their life. They're doing this. How do I answer this question? Right? We're at the family reunion. You're meeting like this aunt you never talked to, and she's asking you all these questions about your life. Like, girl, I don't know. But we're going to find out together. It's going to be great. But today we're going to talk about that. Like those questions when people ask you, what is your plan for your life? Or better yet, what is God's plan? Has anybody ever asked you that? What's God's plan for your life? What do you feel like your calling is? It's the same type of question, just in the Christian realm. But what's God's plan for your life? What is your calling? I've been asked that. I still get asked that, and I'm still trying to figure out that answer. But I want to let you know that that's the question we're going to talk about. But I'm going to let you guys know, we're just going to kick it off, that it's okay to be honest. Right? If we're searching for those answers to those questions, and we're going to the Bible with that, and we're praying to God, like, God, what's the game plan here? Like, what is my calling? What's your plan? It's okay to be honest with that. It's okay to go to God and pray and say, hey man, I have absolutely no idea what you want me to do. I don't even feel like praying, but what's your plan for my life? It's okay to be honest when you're praying to God, searching for those answers. Or just in general, man, it's okay to be honest in your prayer. Because He wants your honesty. He knows what you need before you even ask. So ask honestly. Go to Him and say, hey, honestly, I have no idea the answers to these questions. I don't even feel like praying right now, and I'm sad, and life just sucks, but I'm praying anyway. Go to Him and be honest. It is totally okay to be honest with God. David, if you read Psalms, David was crying out to God. He said, God, where are you? I don't feel you. I don't see you. You've forsaken me. Where are you? And that just amazes me that David was a man after God's own heart, but he also reflected God or prayed to God in an authentic, honest way. He was saying, God, where are you? I don't feel you. I don't see you. Why have you forsaken me? And that was David. That was a man after God's own heart. So that's the same thing with us. If David does that, that's encouraging to me. So when I have those questions, I can go to God honestly and say, hey, I don't really know what my life looks like. I don't know what my calling is. I don't know what my plan is. But I'm willing to be obedient with that. So I just want to plant that seed in your mind now. It's okay to be honest. So like I said, those questions, when you get your calling, people ask you, what's your plan for your life? What is your calling? Let's find the answer to that question. If you have your Bible, your paper Bible, we're not TV, it's your paper Bible, no phones. What about your paper Bible? 1 Corinthians chapter 3 is where we're going to be at this morning. 1 Corinthians is in the New Testament. It is before 2 Corinthians. If that helps. Second Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. And to set this up, there's division in the church. People are starting to compare themselves to each other, and there's some division in the church. And Paul's trying to address that division. And this is what he says in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 through 9. He says, brothers and sisters, I cannot address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly. Mere infants in Christ. I gave you milk, not solid food, for you are not ready for it. Infants, milk, babies drink milk, get it. For you are not ready for it. Indeed, you are still not ready. You are still worldly. You're still acting in your flesh. You're still worldly. Are you not acting like mere humans? For once, in verse 4, for one says, I follow Paul, and another says, I follow apostles. I follow Apollos. Are you not mere human beings? So that's where they're comparing themselves to. They're saying, well, I'm following Paul. I'm following Apollos. And just to break this down into y'all's, make it applicable. If you take that verse 4, it could be like, instead of I follow Paul, it's I work here. I go to school here. My plan is here. That breaks it down for you guys. And then in verse 5, it picks it up. What, after all, is Apollos? And what is Paul? Only servants through whom you came to believe. As the Lord has assigned each to his task, I planted the seed, Apollos watered it. So Paul planted the seed, Apollos watered it, but God has been making it grow. Verse 7, so neither the one who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but only God who makes it grow. The one who plants and the one who waters have one purpose, and they will each be rewarded according to their own labor. For we were co-workers in God's servant. You are God's field and God's building. So Paul's addressing this division where there are people saying, I'm following Paul, I'm doing this. And Paul, he just levels the playing field. He's like, hey man, we're all servants. God is the one who makes it grow. It don't matter if you plant the seed, it doesn't matter if you water the seed, it doesn't matter if you bought the seeds from Walmart or you were the delivery driver. It doesn't matter what happened. We each have one purpose, but God is the one who makes it grow. God gets the glory. God is the one who makes it grow. I was working at a summer camp this past summer, and one of the main rules we had, one of the main staples that we live by, one of the main principles we live by was this saying, God gets the glory, I get the servant. Regardless of everything you do, wherever you're at, in school, at home, or 10 years from now, with a family, whatever it is, and that's pretty much what this is saying. God is the one who makes it grow. So whatever you do, God gets the glory. We get to serve Him. Not have to serve Him, but we get to serve Him. And everything that we're saying, everything we're doing, every place that we're at, God gets the glory because He is the one that makes things grow. And that's how you kind of know if it's from God. God makes things grow. So they're addressing this division. In verse 4, when it says, I follow Paul, another, I follow Apollos, that's the same thing for you guys. When people are asking you that plan for your life, like, hey, what's God's calling for your life? What do you feel about this school? What do you want to be when you grow up? You can pretty much put that phrase right there in verse 4 saying, I follow, I go to this school, I do this, I do that. But it all breaks it down to say, hey, look, instead of, what I want to do with my life, I want to be a servant first. I want to serve God first. So when we get asked those questions, the answer to those questions that you're asked, just start at the solid foundation is, yes, I want to go to this school. Yes, I want to do this job. This is my dream job. But first and foremost, I want to serve God because He is the one who makes things grow. We're all just servants. He's the one who makes things grow. It doesn't matter where I'm at. Tell that to your family reunion at Thanksgiving and coming up in November when your uncle asks, what are you doing? You're like, I'm just a servant, bro. I don't really know. But it's okay to be honest with that. Because look, when we're saying I'm going to be a servant, I get to serve. In my own head, I get those questions, well, all right, God, you want me to serve? Well, who am I supposed to serve? How do I serve Him? Where do I serve? Who, what, where? I have all these details in my mind, trying to overthink it. It's like, all right, God, you called me, your Bible says I'm going to serve, I'm going to be a servant. But now, who, what, when, where, why, how? Where am I going to serve? What are the details? What's the game plan? And those are the honest prayers that you guys can have as well. Don't think you're a bad Christian for having those prayers. Right? All you're doing is you're just a son or daughter running to their father asking a question. So in the Bible, another story in the Bible. This is, if you guys want to flip to John chapter 6. It's still New Testament. You just got to hit the reverse, back it up. And when I was reading this story, or when I was preparing the sermon, I was thinking of a person that mattered. Who mattered? Who was the underdog? Who mattered? Who was a true servant, a true underdog servant, does not get any credit. So there's 4 Gospels in the Bible. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. There's 4 Gospels written by Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John through their perspective, through their witness of Jesus. And the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. Many of you grew up in church, you may have heard that story before. There's 5,000 people. They're hungry. There's no way to feed them. Jesus is like, all right, let me get some fish, let me get some bread. I'm going to feed everybody. But when I was reading this, so there's 4 Gospels, there's 4 different stories, or 4 different viewpoints of Jesus feeding the 5,000. But in the book of John, in chapter 6, verse 9, it says, there is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Only one time in the book of John does it actually address the boy. In the other Gospels, it just says we have this fish and this bread, but it doesn't address the boy. And I think the boy, he plays a crucial part because it shows that we matter. Right? He is the true underdog. So we're going to read it. We're going to read this actually. Chapter 6, verses 5, picking up at verse 5, all the way through 12. When Jesus looked up, he saw a great crowd coming toward him. And he said to Philip, where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, it would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. So a huge crowd. Jesus is like, hey, how are we going to get food? He already knows what he's going to do. He said this to test him. And then Philip's like, it's going to take more than a year's half wages to actually give these people one bite. So a lot of people, not a lot of food. Picking up in verse 8. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. But how far will they go among so many? So still 5,000 people, we only got five pieces of bread and 2 fish. Jesus said, have the people sit down, and there was plenty of grass in the place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Verse 11. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish, and when they all had enough to eat, Jesus said to his disciples, gather the pieces that are left over, let nothing be wasted. So they started out with no food, with 5,000 people, then they ended up with having leftovers. So he took a little and made it a lot. But here's the story with the boy. If we're talking about we're on this level playing field of just being a servant, we have to be available. And that's what the boy was in that story there. He was available. He didn't know any details. When he woke up that morning, he didn't know he was about to take a part in an amazing story. All he was just available. He was just standing there with a lunchbox with 5 pieces of bread and some fish. And God used it. He didn't know the who, he didn't know what, he didn't know who he was going to bless, where it was going to happen. The only thing he was available. And that's the same thing with us. That is why we matter. That's why you matter so much, because you are a servant and you are available. That is why we matter. We matter. We are so significant because we are available. And we don't know the details. That's for God to know. That's what makes God, God, and us, us. We don't know the whole game plan for our life. We just take it one play at a time, and we're going to be available. We're saying, God, I'm ready to serve you. I don't know who, I don't know what, I don't know where. But I'm going to stand there with my lunchbox. I'm going to be available. But don't get it twisted. Just so you can't use that as an excuse to justify procrastination. Right? You can't just live in your basement eating Cheetos on your mom's couch. Like, dropped out of high school, no job, be like, all right, Mom, I don't need a job, I'm just serving the Lord. Don't use that as an excuse to justify procrastination. Right? In order for you to be available, you actually got to be in the game. Right? So you can't just don't use this as an excuse to justify procrastination. Be available. Have that servant's heart. We're getting asked those questions, and we're starting to compare ourselves, and we're looking for answers in other places. Saying, he's doing this with his life. She's doing this with her life. He's going to this school. I'm going to that school. I don't know what God's calling is for me. But now you know, because God's calling for you is to just be a servant. Wherever that looks like. Each person, it could be different. It could be in the other side of the country as a missionary. It could be in Charlotte, in your own backyard. God has a calling for you. But for you to understand that calling, you got to chase after him and be available. We don't know who we're going to serve. We don't know how we're going to serve. We just know that when our time comes, we're going to be available. We're going to be ready. We'll stand there with our lunchbox and say, you know what, God, I'm just going to stand here patiently. I'm ready to go. You just put me in the game when you need me. I'm here. I'm ready. Wherever it may look like. It can look like in 10 years. It can look like tonight when you get home. There's a verse in Hebrews. I was reading, you don't have to turn to it. I'm just going to read it. I was reading this in my Devo. And this is Hebrews chapter 11, verse 6. And it says, and without faith, it is impossible to please him being God. For whoever would draw near to God must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who seek him. So in order for us to draw near to God, we have to believe that he exists. If we're saying, God, where are you? God, where are you? I don't know the answers to these questions. Do you even hear me? Are you even listening? Everybody's asking me questions about what to do with my life. God, what's my calling? Are you even here? What's happening? First, we got to have the faith that he exists. And if we have that faith that he exists, we know that he's there, and we know that he hears us. So when we're coming to him with authenticity, when we're coming to him honestly, saying, God, look, I want to be available. I'm ready to serve you. I don't know who, I don't know what, I don't know where, I don't even know how. But I have faith that you're there, and I have faith that you're listening. Because that's when he draws near. It says, by faith. Now faith is, and without faith, it is impossible to please him. God does not respond to emotion. He responds to faith. God does not respond to emotion. He responds to faith. So if we're crying out, saying, God, where are you? What's your plan for my life? I'm available. I'm ready. And that's just out of pure emotion. And there's no faith that he's actually there and listening. Yes, he's close to the brokenhearted. He is there to use you. But he responds to faith. Without faith, it is impossible to please him. So we can come with our emotions, and he's going to take it all. But it's to faith is what he responds to. So if you want the answers to those questions that you are searching for, come to God with honesty, but come with faith that he is there and that he is listening. Instead of, God, where are you? It's, God, you're right in front of me. God, are you listening? Yes, I'm listening. God speaks through a whisper. I think it was Elijah. Elijah goes to the top of, no, it's the prophet Samuel. He goes to the top of a mountain in 2 Kings. And long story short, he's pleading out to God. He's trying to figure out, God, where are you? You know, what is happening? What's happening? And God responded in a whisper. He wasn't, it says in the 2 Kings, he wasn't in an earthquake. He wasn't in the wind. He responded in a whisper. God spoke to him in a whisper. But if we're coming to God out of pure emotion, screaming and yelling, where are you? What's happening? And he's whispering to us, we can't hear that whisper if we're too busy screaming and yelling. Because he responds to faith. He responds to faith. God, I have faith in knowing I may hear your whisper. I have faith in knowing that you're here. Yes, I have these questions. Yes, I know that I matter. And I'm standing ready with my lunchbox. But if I'm too busy screaming and yelling, I cannot hear a whisper. Same thing with you guys. If you're screaming and yelling to the person next to you and they're trying to whisper back to you, you're not going to hear a word they're saying. We're coming to God. God, I'm ready. Use me. What's happening? I don't know what to do. He's saying, go to this school. Work at this job. It's by faith that it's by faith he responds to faith. Take our emotion out of it. Yes, go to God with your emotion because he's going to bear it all. He's close to the brokenhearted, but go with faith. Know that he is there and know that he is listening. So your answer to those questions of what do I want to do with my life? I want to serve him. That's what I want to do with my life. We're all in the same field. It doesn't matter if you go to Yale. It doesn't matter if you're Steve Jobs, the CEO. At the end of the day, we're all servants because God is the one who gives growth. It don't matter if you're a janitor. God is the one who's going to give that janitor growth in his job. If you're Steve Jobs, God is the one who gives growth to that seed that's planted. It doesn't matter if you're a missionary. God is the one that gives growth. God gets the glory. He's the one who gives growth. He's the one who builds up. We're just servants. That's all we are at the end of the day. We're just servants. Don't compare yourself to other people with being a servant, saying, hey, how come he got to do this? How come he got to do that? No, God is saying, hey, just stand there with your lunchbox and be ready and be available. Don't worry about him. I'm using her separately. He or she, they are serving me separately. Don't worry, I got them. You just stand there with your lunchbox and you be ready. So I want to ask you guys today, are you guys ready? Are you available? If God came to you, are you standing there with your lunchbox saying, look, God, I don't know who, I don't know where, I don't know how, I don't know any of the details. But I have faith in knowing that you know the details. Jeremiah 29:11, for the Lord declares, I know the plans that I have for you, not to harm you, but to give you a hope and a future. God knows the plans that he has for us. It's like a GPS, man. If you're trying to get where you're going, if you want to know the answers about your future, go to the person who created your future. If you want to know the answers to your questions, go to the guy with the answers. Go to him with honesty. Go to him with authenticity. If you're trying to figure out what school you want to go to, what job you want to work, God, what's your plan for my life? What's your calling for my life? What am I supposed to do? He's the one with the answers. Google doesn't have an answer. Instagram doesn't have an answer. TikTok doesn't have an answer. Your friends, your family, as much as they love you, they don't have the answer. They're not the one who's giving you a hope and a future. God is the one who has plans for you. So go to him to find out what those plans are. Don't search for your plans in anywhere else. Don't get it twisted. It's not the B movie where once you pick one job, you're stuck there. When you're searching for those answers, go to the person with the answers. Same thing, like if you're trying to cheat on your homework and you're Googling the answers, you're going to go to Google with those answers. God is your Google. Go to God with those questions because he's the one with the answers. He's the one that has the plans for you. So man, serve. At the end of the day, it's about your heart and it's about serving. God gets the glory. We are just people that get to serve. God gets the glory. We get to serve him. Everything that we say and everything we do. It doesn't matter how small. It doesn't matter how big. God gets the glory. We get to serve him. We're going to stand there ready with our lunchbox today. 4 and 10 years from now, we're going to stand there ready with our lunchbox saying, God, put me in the game, man. I'm ready. I don't know the plans. I don't know what the full game plan is. Just give me one play. Let's go. I'm ready. And when you have that mentality, it's a game changer. Because you no longer start to compare yourself. You no longer care about what the financial income looks like. It doesn't matter, what your family status is, what your income status is. Because you understand that you're just here to serve. You understand that Jesus could be coming back tomorrow. Live your life today as if Jesus is coming back tomorrow. Serve today as if Jesus is coming back tomorrow. All right, if Jesus came back tomorrow, would you rather tell him, hey man, I was serving and it was great, or I was too busy comparing myself, looking on TikTok for these answers, I don't really know what school to go to, so I just kind of gave up and I quit. We don't know when Jesus is coming back, so serve today like he's coming back tomorrow. Serve in the today. How we live in the today determines our priority. Now, don't get that twisted. That is not an excuse to procrastinate things. Be like, oh, I was too busy, with feeding people for 24 hours. I didn't get to apply to school. Don't use that as an excuse to get for procrastination. But live today, serve today as if he's coming back tomorrow. Because we don't know if he is. He could be coming back tomorrow, so make this day count. Serve today as if he's coming back tomorrow. Stand there ready with your lunchbox. Be available as if he is coming back tomorrow. Be available. Be ready. When that time comes for game time, when you're in the game, you're ready to go. It's going to be so awesome. And it could be right now, today at home. It could be this week at school. It doesn't have to be crazy. It could be this week at school saying, God, you actually want me to pray for them? You want me to help them out on their homework? Well, you actually want me to, do the dishes at my house? Those are all acts of serving. Don't get it twisted. Don't try to entitle yourself and fill yourself up with pride saying, no, God, I'm too good for that. I'm not about to pray for them. I'm not about to help them study. Don't entitle yourself. Be like, oh, I'm a Christian. I'm good. I got to serve. It's got to be, I got to go to Africa and paint a school. Don't entitle yourself. Just because you're a Christian, don't entitle yourself. Nobody is too good to serve. Nobody is too good to serve. Don't entitle yourself. Don't feel prideful just because you're a Christian. It doesn't matter what it is. Hold the door for a teacher. Go home and do the dishes. Don't entitle yourself. Because that's what God's going to look at when he comes back. If you were to come back tomorrow, he's going to ask, you had all these opportunities today, but you're too prideful to take advantage of any of those. If we're praying to God and we're coming to him with honesty and authenticity, saying, God, use me, I'm ready, he says, okay, here you go. But you're too entitled and too prideful to take it? Come on. If we're praying to God and you're praying for those answers, and you're praying for the answers to your questions, ready to go, but you're too entitled for that answer, then why are you even praying for it? Don't be too entitled for the answers that God has given you. God has the plans for you to give you hope in the future. Don't be too entitled for those plans. You're not too good for anything. I'm sorry, same with me. I'm not too good for anything. We're just here to serve. God gets the glory. We get to serve him. It doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter where it looks like. God just wants us to serve and be available. Let's pray.